my name's Steve Latham. I'm the founder and CEO of Canopy. We're a business that's creating software platform, Canopy, that's a remote monitoring and management software for connected products. And connected products range from everything from digital signage products, point of sale, self-service kiosk, etc. And our value proposition is all about helping service centers, centralized service centers, become more efficient in providing a service around remote management of fleets and devices that have been put out into the fields. And some of our best customers are customers that have multi-vendor or different types of devices that they're responsible for managing through their centralized service center. And one of our favorite customers is a customer called OpenTech Alliance, who we'll introduce here in a little bit more detail in a moment, but primarily servicing the self-storage industry. And we're very fortunate to have Justin Johnson from OpenTech on the line with us today to talk a little bit about the relationship that we have here with Canopy. So Justin, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Thanks, Steve. Everybody, my name's Justin Johnson. I am the favorite customer of Canopy and also a product manager for OpenTech Alliance. We are a property technology company focused on the self-storage industry. We were founded in 2003, and we are in our 21st year. Our big focus is self-storage automation, so allowing operators of self-storage facilities to run their businesses remotely, focus on operational efficiencies, and really make sure that they're maximizing the ROI and the NOI of their properties through the use of automated technology.
That's great. Thank you, Justin. And before continuing, I've got to say thank you so much, not only for the time that you're giving us today to talk about the relationship, but more importantly, your trust in choosing Canopy to help service your go-to-market approach and everything you're doing from your centralized service center. So thank you, and pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I love doing this and evangelizing for Canopy as much as I can. So thanks for having me.
And also I'll just introduce Nathan Rowe. Nathan runs Canopy's Customer Success Center. He's been with the company for the entire life of the business. Definitely an expert in the platform, understands what it means to drive large networks of unattended devices and lead them towards success. So maybe I'll pass it to Nathan so you can introduce yourself as well.
Thanks, Steve. Yep. So as Steve said, I'm Nathan Rowe. I head up customer success here at Canopy. And in that role, I've had the pleasure of working with Justin Johnson and the broader team at OpenTech Alliance for the last, 1 to 2 years. It's been an exciting journey, and it's fun to take a moment here and look at where you started and where you are now. So I think with that, I'd love to jump in and just pose the question, Justin, over to you. What is it like to manage kiosks? Take us through that life cycle.
So I think that with all technology, especially when you're mixing hardware and software, there's a lot of manual touches that you have to take with that technology when you're setting it up and when you're supporting it. So it was really important for us as we started to develop a lot of this newer technology that we would find ways to automate it, and we would find ways that we could save time for our customers, for our internal teams, as well as for their tenants. So back in the day, especially as we were still growing, it was very manual. You had one person that was having to update software and wait, or having to run certain scripts that were very difficult and cumbersome to troubleshoot. As you can see here on the list, even just looking at this is fairly daunting. And as you're trying to bring new people onto the team and be more efficient, this kind of older way of doing things where it's just one giant grid and some code, it wasn't efficient for us. It made it really difficult for us to keep up with our manufacturer. So we manufacture all of our technology here in the United States of America. And so we have a great relationship with those teams. It was sometimes difficult for us to make sure our manufacturer had the newest builds or the most up-to-date versions of things. Our old RMM, their automation platform and their customized scripting to run those automations just was not very reliable. And it required some pretty intensive development work to constantly be updating and be agile with. The interface was fairly unintuitive. Again, it's a grid. You don't quite know what you're looking at. It's very hard to decipher when you're doing onboarding or support, or an onboarding, in this case, setting up a new device or configuring a new device for a customer that just purchased it. Sometimes it was a little cumbersome to use. And then the cherry on top, and I think what everybody who is looking to automate processes within their organization runs into is the human error. We're not perfect as human beings. There are a lot of times during the setup of technology where one wrong click or one mistake typing something can set a person back an hour or two trying to resolve it. So hope that made sense. There's a
It
lot.
definitely does. And I appreciate that insight. When you talk about managing devices at scale, but especially in the first part of that, when you're trying to get devices deployed and you're manufacturing new devices, your technology needs are changing. Even what's residing on your image changes. I can see how that has a really big impact to things like manufacturing and lifecycle management of a kiosk gold image, and then making sure that the teams that are supporting these devices are up to date with the changes that other parts of your business with engineering and development are doing can be a very daunting task. So with all that understood, where you were at and the issues you were running into, how has that changed now using Canopy?
So the last couple of years, I think, is when we really buckled down. We realized that our current way of doing things wasn't scalable. We started looking at other RMMs that were in the space. There are a lot of them. Not every one of them had the tools we were looking for or were able to solve some of the issues we were running into. So once we were able to implement Canopy, work with you directly, work with your team, a lot of that has changed in terms of the amount of time that it takes for us to actually onboard a brand new device after it's been built has been reduced significantly. It's a lot more efficient for our onboarding teams, our tech support teams to bring new customers into the mix. It's taken a lot of those headaches out that we were experiencing before with trying to manage different builds and trying to manage different installations of the software and different versions of the hardware implementation between us and our manufacturer or any other partners you might be working with. It's about business and operational efficiency. That's what's really improved the most, I think, in our relationship.
That's great feedback. It's interesting to note that where you started your focus and your journey with Canopy was specifically in this onboarding device lifecycle management approach, closing these gaps and removing these issues around gold image management, software distribution, things like that, through the use of automations, which is a core capability of Canopy. So specifically with those new kiosks coming on, running through these automations, what do you think the tangible results of those automations being in place, helping with that onboarding process has meant to your business, your support organization?
It allows us to be more agile. And I think that's a phrase that I'm going to say quite often during this presentation. So number one, the customer is key, right? Somebody comes to you, they want to buy a product of yours, they're running a business, they need it for something that will ultimately and greatly affect their lives or change their lives. And so improving what we refer to as the out of the box experience was pretty paramount. We want our customer who buys a product from us to be able to plug their device into the wall, hook it up to the internet, turn it on, and it's just working and ready to go. Canopy allowed us to do that because with a lot of the time that we save during the onboarding process, it's about 50% of our time. It's 2 to 3 hours worth of time sometimes between the manufacturing portion of it, the work that our manufacturer has to do to get the PCs updated, to get our software installed, to make sure that they do QA on every inch of that device, all the way down to our teams doing the initial configuration and setup. Having Canopy saved us time in a lot of those ancillary or those very basic steps. And so we can set up that kiosk for the customer, get it shipped out on time or even earlier than we quote, and get it into their hands to be installed, and they can be up and operational and renting units and taking payments within an hour. I think that that's something we always wanted to do as a business, and we weren't entirely sure how to accomplish that without spending a lot of money on labor and bringing more and more people onto the teams that maybe didn't need them. So those are probably the biggest upsides and one of our biggest focuses when we brought Canopy on as our new partner.
That's great, Justin. Just a quick follow on to that, because you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation during your introduction that automating and preventing manual labor mistakes like configuration issues that might happen by a human, for example, configuring a machine. I'm just curious, in this process, one of the byproducts of automating that onboarding is that you're sort of standardizing the image that gets applied to the unit, and it's repeated across every unit that gets onboarded into the platform. Was that a corollary benefit, is that you flushed out some issues that may have been caused either by a bad configuration that happened through manual entry errors or configuration drift even that happened just as the machine started to operate?
So I think to answer that, one of the best stories that I have around that, we had a series of devices that went out. This was for a very large customer of ours that had ordered a whole fleet of kiosks for their self-storage facilities. We were doing a batch of them. There was probably about 20 or 30 of them getting ready to go out. And when they would get to the facility, we have a two-way video live help feature. So a person using the kiosk can hit a button and have a two-way video phone call with somebody in office. And that wasn't working. And we were getting call after call after call. We were troubleshooting with the technicians on site that were installing it. We were working with our internal teams, just trying to figure out what happened. After probably a couple of hours, because we were thinking just a little bit too big about it, we went and checked the configuration file that gets set up at the time of manufacturing. And what we realized was the person that was doing that configuration, they were copying and pasting out of a Microsoft Teams message or a Teams file, the VoIP password. And it actually had the VoIP password and then part of a message from Teams copied and pasted into that configuration. So, it's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. We were all a little, perplexed as to how that could have happened. But going back to taking the human element out of processes, that's a big example. It's a poor experience for the end customer. It's a poor experience for their local technicians and people who are trying to make sure that are adopting the technology and have an easy time installing it, because they may have to do a few hundred more, as well as a lot of frustration from the onboarding, the development, and our leadership teams, because we did spend quite a bit of time chasing down what was going on. So I think that automated processes, especially processes where somebody has to touch it every single time and do the exact same thing over and over and over, it's a no-brainer to make sure that you can work that solution into your kind of day-to-day with whatever devices you have an RMM on.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. And it highlights the flexibility of Canopy in the area of automations, because prior to coming to Canopy, we had no direct experience with OpenTech Alliance and your particular business needs, but using a platform like Canopy and the capabilities and automations that can be applied to any business and technical need allows that to not require custom development. It's more of a configuration to your case, your business. So understanding that, once that was solved and you saw the power of automations and the implication to onboarding, provisioning new devices, lifecycle management, how has that changed your approach to new automations to solve other issues in your business? What has that opened up for you?
So the way we approach it, it's usually data driven. We will look through technical support tickets. We will sit with the onboarding teams. We have big teams chats that we are reviewing constantly to see what type of pain points they might be running into. I think a lot of it is really, again, driven on the operational side. Sometimes it comes from customers too. We may have a large operator that's trying to maintain all their technology themselves. we want to make it easy on them. So if something goes wrong, maybe we're automatically rebooting the devices every 7 days just to make sure that all of the temporary files and all the virtual memory is cleared out for operations. Sometimes we look at our process and we go, okay, we've nailed down these few things in the onboarding process that were taking a lot of time. What's the next logical step? And that's, for us, it was, okay, well, now we want to provision the kiosk with the backend automatically when someone creates a record in our CRM. That was a step that was still happening manually. And again, involves somebody logging in, typing in passwords, etc. So making sure that we can always stay flexible with how we approach automations is important, because we may want to set something up in a day and test it and see how it works over the next week. Canopy allows us to be pretty flexible with that and to do things on our own time. Being agile in the moment is a good statement for that. And I think that it's important to highlight, because you may want to make a change that same day. It may be something that's data driven, and it may be something that, hey, a customer called in and they're having issues with X, Y, and Z. And we go, oh, we can automate that. We can bring them out. We can bring them into the conversation, solve a problem that same day, and make sure we keep them happy, because we may be working with that customer for another 20 years.
That's really impressive to hear how you guys have made this such a core part of your business, even leveraging some of Canopy's capabilities where you can send information from your system into Canopy to drive those same automations. That's another really rich feature of the automation section of the product, where we can interact with third-party APIs. We can ingest data from third-party systems or reach out and pull that data in to make further decisions. So it's exciting to hear how you guys have leveraged that in a broader sense, even from the initial creation of the record in your CRM and how that's interacting. Because we are focusing on automations in this discussion today, we've touched on the one for onboarding, how impactful those have been. What are a few other automations that you guys are seeing really tangible impact to your business?
So one of the ones that I described already was the ability for us to have our kiosks reboot themselves after a certain amount of uptime. That was one that you helped us build. In fact, these are all ones that you specifically helped us build over the past couple of years. It's really important with a Windows device that the devices are rebooted regularly. The other ones are USB control automation. We're just starting to really get those implemented. We want to try to prevent truck rolls as much as possible. And a truck roll, for people who don't know, is somebody having to send someone out to another location to fix something related to hardware. We're finding that there are certain cases where maybe there's a credit card reader or something is frozen. It's a peripheral attached to a computer. It's going to happen. So we're trying to implement new automations to prevent anybody from having to go out to the facility, but also just to resolve the issue in the moment and move on. So the end customer, which is the tenant of our customer renting that self-storage facility, doesn't even know there was ever a problem. They can adopt that technology much more quickly and be ready to use it for the next time. The provisioning side, we touched on that a couple of times now, and I think that that's also very important. We are a company that focuses on open technology. And so the self-storage industry is vast. There are many software providers. They all have their own different functionalities. One of those functionalities is renting units, taking payments, allowing our operators to run their business. And we call that a property management software. Those property management softwares connect to us through an API. That's how we know what storage units are available, how much they cost, how much a tenant owes for their rent for the month, etc. Being able to leverage Canopy's capabilities to talk to other APIs or to integrate with other outside APIs to pull data in, to trigger automations, to do stuff like tell a kiosk what facility it belongs to, what its API credentials are, all of its identity information, to pull that data down to essentially run the business, is something that we do and have been doing manually for a very long time. So now leveraging Canopy's API to be able to communicate with other APIs has really unlocked a lot of other possibilities for us moving forward with different automations. The last side of it is customer alerts. We have a lot of customers who are very interested in the health of their facilities and how their kiosk is performing. They want to know, is their internet down? Is their power turned off? Is there something that's happening at the facility that's preventing the kiosk from communicating within their own infrastructure? So with Canopy, we can set up a lot of automations around alerting, and that's going to allow us to send an email to tech support so they can react if a customer's kiosk is showing that it's offline. Maybe their internet's off. Our customer could be in a completely different state. They could be halfway across the country on vacation. They want to also know what's going on at their property. So it allows us to react and to communicate proactively with our customers so they don't find out from a tenant, hey, I'm trying to make my payment, or hey, I'm trying to rent a unit and there's no lights on, right? Or maybe the internet's down or something. So those are some pretty big impact things that we've been able to leverage Canopy's automations to help us solve.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. It's fun to kind of reminisce a little bit on these automations that we built together, just thinking about them and going back to history of other clients, things like driving tickets to ultimately discern what automations you need to build, using capabilities more than just alerting, but the USB control automation where you're applying remote fix actions against these devices to try and prevent those truck rolls, and taking parts of the product to communicate to your customers. So taking a tool that you've purchased for internal use and support, but allowing you to share very intentional communication with your customers. That's all really exciting. And it's exactly the vision that we have and we try to fulfill with Canopy. It's great to hear that that's become a reality for you guys. We've talked through that on how that has impacted so many different parts of your business and it's having a direct impact on your customers. But big part of Canopy is the users like yourself. And can you just speak for a minute on how it has been adopted and the positive impact that it has had on the rest of your team and the support teams within inside of OpenTech?
Absolutely. We struggled quite a bit with our previous R&M. And I think that it was very cumbersome to use. It wasn't very reliable. There was constant updates, constant downtime, and it wasn't something that we could foresee for the future, right? As we started to grow the business, as we started to change our technology, change the way that our kiosks worked, putting everything in the cloud, and making sure that we're developing APIs and we're developing smarter technology, we couldn't scale. It just wasn't something that was actually really scalable, and it wasn't something that was viable long-term, even just really internally. Our onboarding teams and our technical support teams, they complained about our previous RMM quite a bit, and it was clunky, it was slow, all the other reasons I outlined before with the updates and downtime. It made it so it was something that they were forced to use as opposed to something that they decided that they wanted to use and they wanted to learn and grow with. The last and one of the biggest benefits that I've talked about pretty often here, which I think is still important to highlight, is the out-of-the-box experience for our customers. We used to have a pretty long onboarding and setup time, so it would take a while for us to manufacture the kiosks. We'd have to spend a couple of days getting them updated, configured, getting the software installed, and then they would get to the facility and the facility operator wouldn't be able to use them because they'd have to call us. Someone would have to schedule an install. We'd have to log in, run more updates, do all of the debriefs or all of the CRM configurations, make sure all of the stuff is updated. And that could take all day, right? We have seen a huge improvement in the adoption of our technology. And a lot of that is thanks to Canopy because we're able to make things happen really quickly and we're able to be agile in the moment and resolve any issues that come up, implement new technology that would have taken a long time for us to implement before. We can do with a software update and roll it out to all the right devices. It's paramount to make sure that our teams have bought in, our internal teams have bought in, but also that our customer base has bought in as well.
I think it's worth saying that the impact that Canopy has had on your business is also a big result of your leadership and the strong team there at OpenTech. We've witnessed firsthand how you guys have embraced the product. You've made it part of your business. You've gone in and customized it. You've even proved me wrong in some areas. I thought people wouldn't care about icons next to actions. And then your team loved, and they were like, oh, we get to pick our own pretty little action icon. I was wrong. And right.
But what's important is you were able to accomplish that. And that was something you could do. We woke up the next day and it's like, oh, our whole UI makes so much more sense. Right. I think it's the little things like that that combine with the larger things that Canopy has done for us that make you such a great partner, because you're willing to kind of listen to these small things that we're looking for and maybe don't always get to see it on the back end of that here at the office. It increases the adoption rate of the technology 100-fold. Even something as simple as an
and that
icon.
really is important, right? Getting your teams bought in, it can sometimes be a challenge. So it's exciting to see that it has had a lot of traction in your business and has been well accepted by your support organization. But, sold at a business level, and a lot of times the business leaders of your organization want to see a tangible impact to a product such as Canopy being deployed. And customer testimonials, team testimonials, those are great, but sometimes you need that tangible proof. A lot of times we turn to customer tickets, incident management metrics. So can you talk about what the impact has been on your tickets?
That one's pretty straightforward. So when we had first started doing our initial discovery with the Canopy team, we sat down and we went through all the different areas of our ticketing platform, the different categories, different ways that they're being notated by the technical support team or the onboarding team. These are all incident tickets that we're looking through. And we picked all of the categories that we thought that Canopy could have an effect on, or help us reduce, or help us get some visibility into what's going on. So I was looking through our data, and we really have seen a pretty big reduction in tickets. We get technical support tickets for all of our products, and all of those products have different layers underneath them of stuff. Sometimes it's not something wrong. It's a configuration change. It's a setting change. It's educating the customer. But of all of those all the different criteria that we have initially scoped out when we were first working with Canopy, we're seeing a 10% reduction in our tickets overall, or our incident tickets from our technical support team overall. At our scale with the things that we do, that's many hundreds, if not thousands, of technical support tickets that we've reduced, right? And you can imagine the labor impact that has on the sanity of technical support teams, our budget, and the ability to let those people who are working in those departments, whether it's the onboarding team or tech support team, help kind of focus their attention a lot more on our customers' needs, helping them operate their business a little bit more efficiently, introducing them to new technology, giving them time to make sure we train them more efficiently on how to use the product to its maximum benefit. The impact is massive in what we have done over the next couple of years, and it's only improving. It's only improving every quarter.
That's great to hear. And I think you really nailed it when you said the impact to the quality of life, if you will, of a support technician can be hard to measure sometimes. But when it's our experience that when support teams feel like they're barely keeping up, they're fighting similar issues every day, it can feel defeating, and it can sometimes feel pointless. You're not really making traction. When that can be automated away in as many areas as possible and create bandwidth for individuals to feel like, well, I'm having a really tangible impact on my direct customers' experience because I'm able to do the things that you said, like consulting and optimizations, then that really can improve that quality of life. That's a great benefit that can come from proper tool utilization and the capacity that it can create. So understanding all those things is so helpful, Justin, to hear how this has been impacting your business and your teams. Looking forward towards the future, what do you think is on the horizon for OpenTech Alliance and their use of Canopy?
So there's a few things that we're working on. I don't think that in the grand scheme of things, they are these huge, massive projects that we're going to take on and spend the next year working on. We've done all of that. Now we get to focus on some smaller, to take your phrase, some smaller quality of life improvements with the technology. So all of our kiosks, we utilize a piece of hardware called a watt box. That watt box is essentially a network enabled power switch. So if something is going on, let's say there's a very brief power outage at the facility, and that takes the kiosk and powers the kiosk down, and maybe the computer doesn't boot quite up on its own because Windows didn't lose power, right? It didn't have enough time from being powered off to when the power was returned to it. It puts it in an error state. Those watt boxes, our support team can log in and they can reboot a device manually from the cloud. So what we want to do is we want to integrate that into Canopy because it is an essential function of the kiosk now. It's something we're implementing into all of the devices. But we want to make sure going into kind of this next portion as we're empowering our customers with different technology, we can give them access to things like that. So integrating Wattbox into Canopy is important because it exposes it to our support team. It's a single pane of glass that they have to work out of, and it's just one tool. On the other side of that, we can expose that to our customer base. So we just finished, with the help of Canopy, implementing the ability for our customers who are self-storage operators. They could have 2,000 employees. They could have 2 employees. They could be a doctor who has a self-storage facility in another state that he operates on the weekends. Either way, using Canopy, we've allowed them, as you remember I talked about earlier in the meeting, we have two-way video chats. Normally that tenant will call into our Q&R call center and talk to one of our, what we call storage counselors, to help that tenant through the process of renting or payments or whatever trouble they might be happening on the kiosk. Our operators can now use our technology and have that call sent to their office to work with their team, to work with their centralized management. So that way they really take it all into their hands. Canopy has a really great dashboarding feature that we've utilized and we've exposed to a number of our operators out there. We've given them logins. They have a customized branded page and they can only see their devices. And now they can bring their people into the conversation, facility managers, or if they already have a call center, they can really enhance the experience for their call center, and they can do two-way video. And they can control their own kiosks. They can log in remotely with SplashTop, which is integrated into the platform, and control the kiosks, help the tenant, help their customers their own way. And that's not something we would have been able to do with our previous RMM. This is something that, with the way that Canopy's API structure is set up, with the openness of the endpoints, with the flexibility of the automations, that's something that we can really accomplish. And we've tried that for a very long time. And I think this is the first time we've been able to do it so smoothly. We've been able to implement it so it works, right? That's what everybody wants out of their tech. They want it to just work. And that's what we've been able to accomplish with that.
That's really great to hear. Glad that there's some things that will keep us busy in the next couple of weeks or month here. The Wattbox integration sounds like a lot of fun and it's tangible. This is one of many hardware providers out there that provide these network-based power supplies. We've got another integration with the SynAccess power supply, and we're going to be able to apply the same capabilities to Wattbox and downstream probably even turn it into some automations so that your team doesn't even have to get involved to try and recover the system. So excited about that future. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I know that you guys have something coming up this week. Did you want to take a second to talk about that before we ran?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of our kiosk series. I'm not the only product manager here. We all focus on a lot of different things. So coming up on the 24th, the product manager for our kiosk, her name is Christina Trujillo. She's actually just celebrating her 10th year with OpenTech this month. So that's pretty fantastic. She is going to be giving a live webinar on our tech trends. Why should we use kiosks, right? What are kiosks for? Are they worth the hype? And talk a lot about our benefits. Canopy is a big part of that conversation that we have with our customers, as well as a lot of the other pieces of our technology and the improvements we have. So we have any self-storage operators out there, I highly encourage you to check that out. You can find links on our LinkedIn. There's a QR code that is on the screen that you can also scan right now. We'd love to see you.
That's great to hear. And congratulations to Christina about her milestone there. Again, Justin, so glad to have worked with you guys over the last couple of years. Looking forward to more improvements and involvement with your business. Go ahead and pass it back to Steve to close us out here.
Yeah, I just want to echo the thanks, Justin. Amazing. Nathan said this earlier. I think a technology solution is only as effective as its application through someone's leadership like yours. And I think what you've done with your team, not only the application of the tool, but your vision around how to effectively run a fleet of managed devices is extraordinary. And we really value and appreciate your relationship. A couple of key words that you said that I wrote down that I think really hammer home some important points. The adaptability of the Canopy platform to adapt and embrace devices that you're putting out into your customer's base. And then the extensibility of the platform to reach into other business systems that create value for you and your team and your company and ultimately your customers, I think was pretty powerful. And I loved hearing the example of now that we've laid the foundation, we'll go ahead and embrace devices like Wattbox or potentially AI ISV solutions that come to market. You can start to test and put those things to work. So extraordinary application of the product. Again, we cannot say thank you from Canopy enough for everything you've done. And we're just so looking forward to working with you in the future. To learn more about us, I know for some folks that will be looking for more information, you can go to gocanopy.com. That's where you can learn more about Canopy, our business, our product, and the various use cases that we put to work. And then also you can check out OpenTech and all the great work that they're doing in the self-storage industry at OpenTechAlliance.com. Again, Nathan, amazing. Justin, amazing. Thank you for everything y'all do.
Thank you guys. I don't think we would be able to do what we're doing without you all. And if we could, it would take a lot longer than we would have wanted to. You guys have been a great support for us. You've built the integration specifically for us to help us achieve what we're trying to accomplish. And so I'm very thankful that you guys have understood what we're trying to do and you've taken the time to really learn our business. So thank you guys for having me as well.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Nathan.